Good afternoon, Hi, my name is Ruth Davidson. I'm a member of the Scottish Parliament. I'm the leader of the Scottish Conservatives. And I'm a new mum that needs a pretty big reason right now to jump on a flight and spend extra hours away from my boy. And I wouldn't do it for just anyone, but I'm here because I believe that Sajid Javid would make the best leader of our party, the best Prime Minister of our country, and is the best placed man to take our nation forward. Yeah. Now, I'm pretty lucky because I haven't spent the last few months at the coalface in the Commons, living and breathing every Brexit amendment or indicative vote. But I can tell you what it looks like from the outside, and it ain't pretty. And beyond Parliament, we're at a very pivotal moment for our country, and it's a country divided. And to break the impasse and to heal those divides, to unify the country and to change the way we look at ourselves and our future, we need a leader that's not afraid to be different. And leadership's about many things. It's about vision, determination and guts. It's about judgment, communication and moral courage. It's about setting a course and bringing the nation with you. Fundamentally, it's about character, and Saj has it in spades. Now, this is a phrase that I've not used very often, but he's the man for me. Sorry, Laura. Now, Saj's background, his ability, his experience, and his policies can, and I believe will, bring our country together again around an optimistic vision for our future. And it's an optimism that is so often lacking. But when it comes to Saj, how can you not be excited? From a packed Bristol bedroom to Home Secretary and a leading candidate to be Prime Minister. His is a story of Britain at its best, and I believe that he's the best choice for Britain too. And you underestimate this man at your peril. I was first pitched against him in a selection meeting in Bromsgrove nearly 10 years ago. And he beat me and he beat all the other candidates hollow, and he deserved to. And I have a competitive streak a mile wide, and by rights I should have hated him for it, but I didn't, because since then I have found myself continually impressed by his application, his energy, his brains, and his sheer bloody hard work. And the qualities that he's shown in every job that he's done in politics across 5 government departments. He's always pushed boundaries, he's always refused to accept limitations, buzzing with ideas and enthusiasm, and marked out by that restless energy that you get from an outsider. But none of these qualities matter if people have stopped listening to what our party has to say. We have to speak the language of modern Britain. And if we want people's votes, we have to show that we share their values, their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. They have to be able to look at the leader of our country and see something of themselves. And as a party, we are struggling to speak to great swathes of the population, younger voters, ethnic minorities, urban professionals, the very parts of the country that are growing the fastest, the very people that are turned off by the same old Tories. And if the Conservatives are going to keep Jeremy Corbyn out of Downing Street and keep the union together, we must build an electoral coalition. We must reconnect with those people who've stopped listening to us, and we've got to reach a new audience too. And we need someone who speaks to their concerns, not because he's read a brief or gone on a visit, but because he's lived them. Someone who's able to tell a story of our country, all of our country. Someone who understands shared identities, who's able to bring the home nations together and give everyone from Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland greater reason to feel pride in our shared endeavour and our historic union. And a union that is every day under threat. From populist leaders already in power and those that are competing for it. From those who seek to sow division and reap rewards, putting political differences ahead of our shared values for their own ends. And I've seen the consequences of that short-term thinking in Scotland, where nationalism replaces patriotism, and it's ugly, it's divisive, and it's dangerous. I love the United Kingdom, and I believe that we all have a shared ownership of it. But it's not fixed in time, and the case must be made and remade for every age, and I believe that Saj is the man to make it. Our party is the Conservative and Unionist Party. It is the party of opportunity, of education, of aspiration. of giving people a leg up and ensuring that they can have a fair go. It's time to show that face to the British people. And as a party, we've always been well served by a Prime Minister who was raised above the shop. Ladies and gentlemen, Sajid Javid.
The first time I felt like an outsider was when I was 6 years old. My cousin told me that we needed to change our walking route to her school so that we could avoid the bad kids, the ones that supported the National Front. That was the first time, but it wasn't the last time. When I was at secondary school, the other kids told me about their summer holidays. I'd only ever go to Rochdale on holiday. So I pretended to go abroad like them, and they couldn't tell if this was a tan or not. When I wanted to do O and A levels that I needed, although I had a couple of inspiring teachers, I was told that kids like me should know their limits and they should stay in their lane. When I was told that I could be the first in my family to go to university, and I went, I knew hardly any other students like me that were from state school. When I was a new graduate seeking my first job in the city, I met old school bankers with their old school ties. Men who told me that my face didn't fit, and that where I came from was far less important than where I could take them. And when I wanted to marry the love of my life, who happened to be white Christian, people in my wider family and community told me that I shouldn't, that I couldn't, that I must stick to my own, not to have kids who, in their words, would be called half-caste. And when, after 20 years in business, where I was the go-to guy for managing multi-billion-dollar international deals, when I wanted to give something back to my country, and I looked at the only party that I had ever supported, there were those who told me, no, it wasn't for me. They even suggested that I should join the Labour Party because that's what they felt. They did. They did. Because they said that's what immigrants and their children should do. But you know what? I refuse to be labelled, to be put into a box, to be the person that people said that I should be. So when I got racially abused at school by the toughest guy in school, well, rightly or wrongly, I punched him. And when I was told I couldn't go to a better school because the council wouldn't pay for my bus fare, I got on my bike and I went anyway. And you know what? When Labour tried to kibosh this launch of my leadership campaign, because the leadership campaign they fear the most. They failed, and here we are. And can I thank you all for waiting, for persevering. I'm very grateful. I hope you've been looked after. Thank you. And you know, after university, I did get married to Laura, and we now have 4 amazing kids. And we have a dog called Bailey that you might have seen recently on Twitter. And my kids aren't half-caste. They're not half anything. They don't even know the meaning of that word. They're full British, and they are playing their role in modern Britain. That's just one of the many ways Britain has got better and better in my lifetime. And these are just some of the barriers that I've broken through in my life. So I'm used to people telling me what I can't do. I've always been more interested in what I can do, because I know what I can do. And I'm optimistic and determined that what we can do together as a party to break through the barriers that people say can't be broken, to heal the divisions people say can't be healed, and to make post-Brexit Britain the success that many naysayers say it never will be. That is why I have put myself forward to be the next leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party and the next Prime Minister of our country. You know, that I can stand here today and I can say those words is testament to the enduring strengths of our party and our country. And it's thanks to those strengths that I believe that I am uniquely qualified to lead our party and our country through the challenges that lie ahead. I've got a credible, honest plan for delivering Brexit so that we can leave by the end of October this year. And I've got the background, the ideas, and the positive vision for the future that will help bring this country together and keep Jeremy Corbyn far away from 10 Downing Street. Because we have to recognise that making a success of Brexit is only the first step we need to take. In some ways, you could say it's the easy bit. British voters are rightly very demanding of those who govern them. Just delivering Brexit, doing what we promised that we would do, will not be enough for us to win a majority at the next general election. You know, it might surprise some people here in Westminster, but most people in this country do not just talk about Brexit. And we know that, and we have to show them that we know that. That we understand normal life. That we are tackling all the issues that matter. And that the Conservatives have changed, and they are changing. I know we can do this because in one part of the UK, we are already doing it. For years, we were behind in Scotland. We all heard Labour's joke about the number of pandas north of the border. Then the Scottish Conservatives threw out central casting and they elected somebody totally different. Someone who made people look at our party again. Ruth Davidson brought that change, and with her she brought huge gains. Thanks to Ruth and her team, we are winning again. In fact, without them, this would be a contest for the leader of the opposition, not Prime Minister. I'm so proud to have Ruth on Team Saj, because the change that she's brought to Holyrood is the change I will bring to Westminster. Now, we've heard the pitch from the rest of the candidates. I've listened to them all. I respect them all. I would be happy to work with them all. And I really want to see Mark Harper referee that fight between the lion and the bear. But I believe now more than ever that at this moment, as we face the challenges that are unlike any that we have faced before, this calls for a new kind of leadership from a new kind of leader. A leader is not just for Christmas or just for Brexit. We can't risk going with someone who feels like the short-term comfort zone choice. We have been in power now for almost a decade. At some point in the next 3 years, we're going to have to face our 4th general election and try to win a majority. And that will be after only winning 1 general election majority in the last quarter of a century. And that was only just. A win that was achieved not by galvanizing a narrow base, a base that, let's be honest, is getting narrower all the time, but by building broad support across the country. Now, we can rebuild that appeal. We must. We just need to show the public that we have changed and we deserve a second look. We need tomorrow's leader today. Not the same old insiders with the same old school ties, but a new generation with a new agenda. And that means understanding that we cannot call ourselves a one-nation party if there are whole swathes of this country that don't think that we share their values and their needs. Whether that's millennials, especially young women, people who care about climate change above all else, people who feel locked out of the housing market, people from minority backgrounds, all the disaffected working class voters who don't think that anyone really knows how they feel. A lot of that is about having the right language, the right motivations, making people feel included and welcomed, not excluded and ignored. I know what that feels like. And from the tragedy of Grenfell, to the crisis of rough sleeping, to the scandal of Windrush, my experience has humbled me greatly. I've also watched with real concern as increasingly profound divisions emerge in our society and our country. Not just between Remain and Leave, but between regions and communities, rich and poor, rural and urban, young and old, black and white. The temptation for some, and we've seen this around the world, will be to double down on those divisions. I reject that path. We are at a crossroads, and we must stop our country going down the wrong direction. Now, to do that, we need to understand that we won't deliver on the referendum result simply by leaving the European Union. That the vote to leave wasn't just a critique of the Brussels establishment, it was also a critique of the UK establishment, against a system that feels increasingly rigged, and against a world where people feel that our best days are behind us. And it means understanding what we have done wrong as a party and as a government. Because we have been too timid too often. Somewhere along the way, we've lost our competence and we've lost our confidence. I don't say this lightly, but as someone who's anxious for us to do much, much more. I passionately want to bring energy and ambition to our party and to our government. You know, I first took an interest in politics when I realized the power of government and the power it had to give people the opportunities they deserve. And that will be the acid test for my policy agenda as Prime Minister. Are we going to keep people in their place, telling them what they should do? Or are we going to be taking on the elites and the cartels, in the public and the private sectors and helping people with what they can do. Because the problem with much of the Westminster elite in all parties is that they have always been the insiders, never had to fight like the rest of us to get their foot in through the door. Life dealt them a good hand, and they've played it well. And I can't blame them for that. But it wasn't birthright or connections that got me where I am today. It was hard work, public services, and family. And it's those three ideas that will lie at the heart of my bold policy agenda. A manifesto for change that will make our country fairer, stronger, and more united. That will allow us to face the future with confidence and pride. Because I want everyone in this country to know, I want them to feel that if they have a go, they will have every opportunity to succeed. And that means world-class public services and bringing people together as a stronger and more cohesive society. Delivering on both of those things requires a strong economy to pay for it. That means low taxes, backing businesses and rewarding everyone that works hard. It means fiscal responsibility, keeping debt falling. And it means we need to invest in growth. That is why I've outlined plans for an ambitious new £100 billion national infrastructure fund, taking advantage of some of the lowest interest rates this country has had for centuries, investing in projects that will create jobs and ensure that the British economy is fit for the future. The fund will be based outside London with a core aim of rebalancing our economy, investing in all parts of the UK, because a more balanced economy is the key to a more prosperous and united country. Now, I know that talking about growth can feel a bit removed from ordinary life. One of Jeremy Corbyn's top advisors even wrote a book complaining that people are obsessed about talking about growth. Well, I'm not ashamed to say I am obsessive about growth, because it gives families the security of a regular income and the knowledge that our world-class public services will always be there for them. You know, for me, public services have never just been the names of government departments. They were my lifelines. The teachers who made my career possible, the police officers who kept us safe when the street I grew up on became a centre for drug dealers, the NHS that cared for my father in his dying days. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They are the beating heart of our country, and they deserve a Prime Minister that truly believes in them. The biggest engine of social progress is a strong education system, which is why I have laid out a long-term investment plan for education, ensuring that every child has the chance to get on in life, starting from well-funded colleges and schools and continuing with lifelong learning, so that our economy changes people that don't, and make sure that no one feels that they are left behind. Of course, none of that would mean anything without law and order on our streets and a health service that is there for you when you need it. And I've been clear. We need to significantly increase resourcing for our police, providing enough for an additional 20,000 officers on the streets. And we will continue to invest in our precious NHS so that it can continue to deliver world-class care, free at the point of use, now and in the future. Our public services are the foundations on which our society is built. But as Conservatives, we also recognise the vital role that is played by families and communities. You see, I was lucky. I am lucky. I have a strong, supportive family around me, where we can rely on each other for support no matter what happens. So we must ensure that government is supporting families in everything that it does. We need to build a stronger national family too, overcoming the sense of have and have-nots and delivering that more balanced economy so that no one feels left behind. And we need to strengthen our family of nations, that is our precious union, something I would never do anything to undermine. It is almost 2 centuries since the idea of one-nation conservatism was coined by Disraeli. It's not a coincidence that it took a bit of an outsider to understand our strengths and weaknesses as a country and as a party. We now have the chance to choose another outsider as Prime Minister. And we have many opportunities to seize as a country if we have the confidence to do so. Our party and our country have a great past, a past of which we can be very, very proud. But I am less interested in the history books than in the stories that are yet to be written. I believe in my heart that if we can unite as a party and as a country, our best days do lie ahead of us. And I speak with feeling about our party because for me, it was a choice. And I speak with feeling about this country because for my family, Britain was a choice. They came here for freedom, for security, for opportunity, and for prosperity. And it's because of these strengths that I've always been an optimist about Britain's future. I feel a responsibility as their son and as a child of this country to help secure for this generation and future generations all that it is that makes Britain a beacon for the world through Brexit and beyond. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. So we'll now take some questions. And once again, can I thank you all for being patient? And we'll start. I've got some names down here, and I'll start with those first, if I may. Then we will have some time for some further questions. And please let me start with, is Beth Rigby here? And Beth, you shouldn't worry about anyone booing you at this event, you know, for just doing your job. Now, can you go easy on me? Because I've just given you a clap.
On the issue of that, when Boris Johnson was asked this morning about his use of offensive language regarding Muslim women, he said he would continue to speak directly. Others might say he speaks divisively. Are you concerned that the Conservative Party is about to turn back into the nasty party?
I am concerned about the rise of division in politics. And I was saying a moment ago that it's not just in the UK, I referred to you globally. We're seeing a rise in division. And alongside that, sadly, some politicians, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular here, but politicians around the world, that think that the way to win votes is to exploit division. And I'm very worried about that. It's not something I want to see in our country. In fact, I think with another one of our great political parties, the Labour Party, I think it's already gone that way. The leader of the Labour Party is all about identity politics, about absolutism, no compromise whatsoever. And I'm concerned about that. And we've got to make sure that our political future is not about division, but it's about bringing people together. And I think I'm well placed to do just that. Then next I've got Nick Watt. Hey, you don't have to.
Some of your supporters are saying that what we witnessed from Boris Johnson today with the jeering of Beth Wrigley was sort of Trumpian tactics in the UK. Are you concerned that the US-born Boris Johnson is bringing Trumpian tactics to this country?
I think that was a warm-up act for me, Boris's thing earlier today. So I thank him for that. But I think similar to Beth's question, you know, I am concerned about division in politics and whether they are, you know, Trumpian tactics or not. You know, I think that for a healthy democracy, you know, of course you want good, vigorous debate, but I think the best way to do that is to try and bring out the best in people. Try to focus on those things that will unite people and bring them together. Because you know, the root of focusing on division, on extremism, you know, whichever end of the political spectrum it is, can only lead to ruin for democracy, and it's not something I want to see for our great country. Dan Hewitt, please, from the ITV.
Dan Hewitt, ITV News. You said in your speech you want a new kind of leadership, and you are a new kind of leader. What would you say was the biggest difference between you and the front runner in this race, Boris Johnson?
I would say, well, I could give you a real long list of things if you like, but let me just focus on one. I'd say I'm a change candidate. Yeah, Boris Johnson is yesterday's news, right? In that he's been around in politics for a while, he's achieved a lot, and he's probably, you know, he's still got a big role to play. But I think if we are trying to connect with the next generation and move forward as a country, then I think it's time for the next generation with a bold new agenda. And what I can do in terms of the policies, I think being able to articulate those policies is not just about that message, you know, the core message. I think the messenger makes a real difference as well. And what I can do, you know, I am different. I look different. My background is very different. My life experience is very different. And I think that connects with 90% of the population of our country, and it will really make a difference.
And in terms of difference, I'm not running out on you, but the house means I've got to run out to look after my baby. So,
You're going to catch your flight.
We've all got responsibilities outside of politics, so very well done.
Thanks.
Let
See you
take
later.
more
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you. See you later. Bye. Well, that was nothing I said there, by the way. And Kate, please.
Thank you. Kate Devlin from The Times. Do you agree with the current law on a 24 time limit on abortion? And can I ask, if you had the chance again, would you still strip Shamima Begum of her citizenship?
On your first question, I think abortion, I think everyone understands, a very sensitive issue. And that's why whenever it's come to Parliament, it's been a free vote, rightly so. And I very much feel at this point it's a settled issue. I don't think there's an urge for anyone to bring it back up in Parliament. But certainly if I was Prime Minister, I would not be pursuing that issue. It's not on my agenda at all. And your second question, I can't talk about any particular case. You obviously talk about a case where someone was deprived of their British citizenship. But I can't get into the details of a particular case. But I will say this, that you as Home Secretary, your number one priority all the time is to do whatever you can to protect the citizens of this country. And sometimes that does involve taking some difficult decisions. But you can't shy away from them. You can't wish that they weren't there. And when you get advice from intelligence agencies, from counter-terrorism policing, from security specialists in the Home Office, from legal advisors, I think that the country would expect a responsible Home Secretary to follow that advice. I've got Jack, please, for the Mail. Jack Doyle. Yep, Jack, please.
Thank you. Mr. Javid, you voted Remain in the referendum. How are you going to convince the Tory membership that you believe in Brexit?
Well, I'd say a couple of things, Jack. First of all, even when that vote was taking place, I said very clearly that I'm not worried about a leave vote. I would embrace the opportunities that would create for the country. But more importantly, like almost every single Conservative MP at the time and now, I agreed that we should have a referendum and we should let the British people decide. And my vote was as important as your vote or any other citizen in our country. It wasn't worth anything more. And I agreed to be bound absolutely by whatever the will of the British people was. And that is critical now, in that it's a fundamental test of the fabric of our democracy. It's already been delayed and delayed, so we have to leave by the end of October this year. But also, when I look ahead and think about what we can do as a country once we leave and what we can achieve, I just think about all those opportunities. And I think, given my experience, my background, what I've talked about today, I'm in a very good position to help the country take advantage of them. Yeah. We've got Matt, please, from The Sun.
Matt Dathan from The Sun. You said in your speech that your own government has lost competence. Where exactly have they lost competence? And having served as Home Secretary, would you be happy as Prime Minister to appoint a MP who has taken Class A drugs?
So, let me start with your last question first. You're obviously referring to my good friend Michael. Michael is a good friend, he's a good man, and he's big enough to defend himself, which he has done. And in terms of your first question about competence or incompetence, top of the list is not delivering Brexit. It's been 3 years. We haven't delivered Brexit. We said we would, and we haven't, and the people think we're incompetent, so we need to get on with it. Anna, please, from The Telegraph. Please.
Do you think Brussels will respond to you better than Boris Johnson, and if so, why?
Look, I don't want to, the number of candidates here, they're all good people, and I think they will all absolutely try their very best. But I will speak about myself, and I think that what matters here is, first of all, I think it will help to reset the relationship, to have different people negotiating. I think they will be on the Brussels side as well, following the changes that are being made at the Commission. And I also detect, and I think it's been reported in places, that even in Brussels, there's a sort of sense that they might have to be a bit more flexible to move forward, because they can sort of sense that in our Parliament that there's going to be a need to do something different. And for me, that would be revisiting some of the changes on the backstop. But then when I also look at my own experience of doing deals, big international deals, in the 20-year career I had before I came into politics, I started at the bottom of the finance industry, I finished towards the top. And that was because I built a reputation of doing many multi-billion dollar deals, including some of the largest sort of financing and bond transactions the world has ever seen. And they weren't easy. They weren't straightforward. They were all involving negotiation. They were involving competition with lots of other companies to win the deals. So whilst I think everyone understands no one's got perfect experience to deliver Brexit because no one's done anything like it before, I think with that experience that I've got outside government and the experience I've got in government, a track record of delivery of working in 5 government departments, having run 4 of them, I think I'm in a very good position to get a good Brexit deal for the United Kingdom. Well, it's Seb Payne here. Yeah, there he is. Seb.
Sebastian Payne from the FT. Your campaign had a bit of a slow start, some people say, compared to your rivals. Do you think you've started to pick up momentum a bit too late to convince enough MPs for Thursday? And second of all, do you think the Conservative Party has a problem with Islamophobia? And if so, what would you do about it?
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy with the way the campaign's going. We have been picking up a lot of support, and the real test, the real proper test, will be tomorrow, so we shall see. The one thing I am concerned about is I think my dog Bailey has become more of an interest to people than me as the candidate myself. And certainly my children think that Bailey should be given a fair chance at it too. But, sorry, and your second part of your question was?
I was saying, do you think the Conservative Party has a problem with Islamophobia?
I think that, first of all, let me start more widely and then come to the Conservative Party. I think there is a real problem with growing anti-Muslim hate crime. And that is something that both for me as Home Secretary and in my previous role as Community Secretary, now working today now with the current Community Secretary, is something we take very seriously as government throughout society. And we have an anti-Muslim hate crime working group. We work with across with many people across society trying to think about what more we can do. And then I think that in political parties and your social organisations, including political parties, in some of them there is a particular issue. I wouldn't say, from what I've seen and my own experience and from what I know, that there is a real sort of particular issue in the Conservative Party with hate crime. But it is absolutely essential that whenever you come across someone that does something that any one of us in this room would find completely unacceptable, and they say something, that firm action has been taken, and that's what's always happening. Yeah. And I'd be very happy for someone externally, an organisation, to come and take a look as well, and to try and give some further sort of external reassurance, because I think we've got nothing to hide. All right. Well, I've gone through the list I had. I'm very happy to take a few more questions. I'll just take one there. Just be very patient. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Javid. I'm sure you'll be grateful to know that my question is not about Islamophobia or about Brexit. My question is, if you became... Sorry? Oh, sorry. My name's Olivia Cooper, and I'm head of Family Office and Private Wealth for Mebian Co-Solicitors. But my question today is about what would you do if you became leader of the Conservative Party and obviously then Prime Minister? What would you do to protect our armed forces against persecution or prosecution? Currently, it's going on at the moment with Soldier F for our armed forces that served in Northern Ireland and also in other conflicts. So the Phil Shiner, for example, scandal created huge hardship among our armed forces. And what would you actually do to protect against that coming again? And what would you do to help Soldier F now?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm incredibly proud of our armed forces, all the men and women that work in them today and have worked in them. And I'm very concerned and have been for a long time about what I would sort of describe as sort of, say, vexatious claims, legal claims, and other types of claims for historic service. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I have the answer, because I think most people understand that this has turned out to be a very sensitive and complex area. But it is something that if I were Prime Minister, I think I would have to change the current situation. I just cannot continue, or we cannot continue with a situation where someone from our armed forces have given their best for this country, worked incredibly hard and done everything that they thought was the right thing to do, and then many years on, sometimes 20, 30, even longer years on, that they are then pursued through the courts non-stop, and they feel it's never going to end. I don't like that. I wouldn't tolerate it, and I would make it a priority for the government, and I would sit down probably with my Attorney General, who that was, and make it their #1 priority in their inbox. I will. Yes, please.
Richard Gaisford from Good Morning Britain. I wondered when it was that you'd come to the conclusion that you needed to replace the 20,000 police officers that Theresa May had cut, and why it's taken you so long to kind of mention it.
Well, first of all, probably before I was Home Secretary. Because as well as being Home Secretary, like all other ministers, a Member of Parliament, and in meeting with my constituents and some of the issues that were coming up, and then discussing with some of my colleagues, I won't say necessarily it was 20,000, but I felt that the cuts to police numbers had gone too far. And that's not to say that changes shouldn't have been made back in 2010, but what we've seen since 2010 is also a significant rise in what I would call like the more complex crimes, things like cybercrime, historic sexual offences, modern slavery, all very serious offences, but taking a lot more police man-hours. And so that has also made me think we need a big increase, but it was before I was Home Secretary, and obviously whilst I've been Home Secretary, I've been able to think about this a lot more and consider it more.
But you haven't been able to say anything about it.
No, and that's, yeah, and turning to the second part of your question, I, as Home Secretary, until this leadership election started, I am rightly, completely bound by collective responsibility, and I should be. I mean, that's how government should work. And so it's not, the reality is it's not exactly what I think alone about policing or other Home Office issues. It is a collective decision by the entire Cabinet, and that's the way it should be. But now we are on a leadership election. I think it's perfectly acceptable and understood that if you want to be the next Prime Minister of this country, you should be very clear about what you would do and not do. Okay. Right, well, thank you all very much for that. Thank you so much. Thank you.